This is question 27 from section 1 of the 2016 TSA paper. And in this question we're asked which option best expresses the main conclusion of the argument. So let's look at the argument. First it says there's no point to reenactments of historical battles. Then it says despite the attention to the uniforms and cannon smoke, the simulation fails on every level. And then there's a colon, so it looks like the next part is related, but I'll separate it out because it's slightly different. It says there's no real danger of death and you know what the outcome will be. So that's just a factual statement pointing out that people don't die in reenactments of battles. Then it says it is merely an exercise in pageantry. So pageantry is something that's just done for show. And last it says in history the participants didn't realise who was going to win, whereas in the reenactment everyone knows their role and what's going to happen. So that's just another factual statement about the nature of reenactments. Okay, so now let's look at the structure of this argument and try to figure out what the main conclusion is. So first of all, the writer doesn't say anything should happen, so this isn't proposing a solution, it's more about their reaction to an issue. And we've already noted these two facts, saying that in reenactments there's no danger of death, the outcome's known, unlike in history. And what's left? There's these three statements that could all be conclusions. So there's no point to reenacting battles, the simulation fails, and it's just pageantry. So let's try to figure out which is the main conclusion and which are just statements of the problem. Well, the main question is which of these could support another conclusion, and which of them isn't supporting something else in the argument. So if the simulation fails, then that's a reason to think there's no point to reenacting battles, but not vice versa. So it looks like this is just going to be an intermediate conclusion. It's going to be setting up the problem. So because of these facts, the simulation fails, and then the writer is going to react to the fact it's not a good simulation. So saying it's just for show, that might be a reaction to saying it's not a good simulation. But also, it just being for show is a reason to think there's no point in doing it. And not so much vice versa. So that means it looks like this is going to be the main conclusion everything else supports, and saying it's just for show is part of the problem. So that means it looks like this is our main conclusion. And our main reasoning is that it being a poor simulation or being pageantry is a good reason to think there's no point, but not vice versa, because even if there's no point, that doesn't mean it's for show. There could be some other aspect to it, and even if there's no point, that doesn't mean it fails as a simulation. Okay, so now let's look at which of our options best expresses this conclusion. Okay, so here are my 5 options, and here's my main conclusion. Well, if we look at something that says there's no point to reenacting battles, well, that's almost exactly what C says. It says it's pointless. It's the same as saying there's no point. So it looks like C is going to be the answer. Let's just rule out the others. A says that reenactments are just pageants, and B says the simulation fails. Well, those are both expressions of sentences in the argument, but they aren't expressions of the conclusion, so we can rule those both out. And then D says reenactments don't give insight into battles. E says the pageantry isn't valuable in itself. Well, neither of those is a thing the writer actually says, so it can't be the main conclusion either. And that means here our answer is definitely C.